Hey, what's up, YouTube? We're back with another video. Today, we're going to be returning to our tier list series. Today, we're going to be talking about how the Crusher and Wretch stacks up against our support weapons. All the blue stratagems, including our support weapons, backpacks, mechs, and a couple weird ones like the Solo Silo. I'm trying to break it up a little bit more just because if I do the entire stratagem list, I think we have like over 90. I think we're looking at almost 100 stratagems at this point. It's going to take me like 45 minutes to an hour to get through all of them and yap on every single one. So we're going to kind of break it into segments at this point just to make it a little bit easier to, get through as a video. Of course, we'll have the timestamps down below. Consider leaving a like, comment, subscribing on the video. Let me know what you guys think of it, and feel free to debate on where I put things. I'm sure there's going to be stuff that might be a little higher than you would prefer or a little lower. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to come by the stream. I'm live every single morning with this little kitten, Luna, and I'd love to talk about it. I love going back and forth and hearing different viewpoints and hearing the pros and cons that other people can come up with when we're talking about support weapons. So let's get into it. All right, starting with the MG43. Like we talked about in our last video, the bullet hose stratagems tend to struggle quite a bit on the Crusher side of the new enemies. When I'm going to be talking about these stratagems, it's mostly going to be talking about how it performs against the entire plethora of enemies that you're going to be dealing with. Assuming it does well against both, it'll be rated higher. Assuming it does really well against one, but maybe doesn't really do anything against another, it'll be kind of like an A tier or something along those lines. But if it kind of struggles big time against both, it'll be lower in the tier list. I'm trying to figure out more or less what are your stratagems that are going to be more useful to you versus what are the stratagems that are going to be kind of more of a detriment to bring. And I'm definitely going to value being good against Crusher versus being good at Wretches. Wretches tend to be the easier of the two to deal with just normal primary weapons, so that's why. All right, starting with the MG43. MG43 sucks against Crushers. It takes a lot of bullets to take out a Crusher, assuming you're shooting at one leg and you didn't miss. It's just rough. At least it does well against the Wretches, but because it lacks AP4 and it's just medium pen with a good fire rate, it's not doing much against those Crushers. If you have heavy pen somewhere in your loadout, you could just senator off the, face mask and then spray down the little head. That works, but at that point, do you really need a support weapon to do that, or can you just have a primary? So I'm gonna put it B- to C+ as far as this tier list is concerned. Good against Wretches, especially with the new armor, reload speed, but it's going to suffer against the Crushers quite a bit. I wish it was more efficient and I wish it was a little bit better, but it's not particularly great. So it's gonna be hovering between B- and C+. EATs, I really can't see a reason to bring EATs in the current situation. You can knock off the helmet with one, but let's be honest, there's a lot of stratagems that can do that, including heavy pen secondary weapons, that it's hard for me to justify bringing EAT. 2 ATs is not going to take out a Crusher unless the first one hits the helmet and the second one hits the small weak point. But that's an awful lot of work for something that can be easily done by a support weapon that isn't necessarily needing to be called in every minute and can only take out one Crusher at a time. Obviously, it doesn't have much Wretch potential either, so not particularly great. Right, Luna? All right, next we have the Stalwart. I want to put it a little bit higher than the MG43, but still not great against Wretches. I'm going to put it a little higher just into the B tier here, just because I find it does do pretty good against the Wretches, but, versus the Crushers, I just don't like using this bullet hose. You're using about a third of your magazine or so, even on the fastest fire rate, on a leg to take it out. Can you do it? Yes. Should you spend all that time and ammo on it? Maybe not. I still think it's okay to use. It was, a fan favorite for many people, especially on the normal Illuminate front, but the higher demand of needing AP4 or maybe needing explosive damage for the Crushers just tends to be a little bit high on this particular variant of Illuminate. So not a huge fan of the Stalwart, but I'd like to know if you guys are finding a lot of success with it. Next, going into laser cannon. I think this thing is cooking. Finally, we see the laser cannon come all the way up into the S tier. This thing destroys Crushers because it takes off the helmet very fast. It is AP4, good damage, a limited ammo. It is extremely extremely accurate with very little like movement of the reticle and stuff like that, so you can take out the head, while also being very good against the wretches because it lights them on fire very effectively. And wretches, although they have a pretty decent health bar, they seem to be pretty big, so they take a lot of damage over time from fire. Very good. And because lasers are extremely good at lighting things on fire, if you see a pack of wretches in front of you, you more or less just have to like bring the laser across all of them. They all got lit on fire, maybe light them on fire one more time, and they're all dead. Very good. Highly recommend. All right, next we have the AMR. This one I'd love to put into S tier along with the laser cannon, but my gut reaction says high A+, just because you're not going to be using this against wretches. You're going to have to depend on your other weapons and your other stratagems, like your primary weapons and such like that. It is extremely effective versus the Crusher though. You know, it is very satisfying to knock off the helmet in just 2 shots and then one-shotting the small head. And because you got a nice scope on it, it's pretty easy to hit the head as well. If you're maybe struggling at hitting precision shots with the laser, which is obviously a downside, I would just say go with the AMR. But this is more or less like you're giving up the ability to potentially like have a limited ammo weapon and so on and so forth, but you're having trouble with the precision shots, so you go with the AMRs, you're having to deal with the magazine and so on and so forth, which is a bit annoying. Next, we have the grenade launcher. Highly recommend. It's right up there on this one. You're going to do super well against the wretches. You're going to do super well against the crushers because it's only a couple shots. It doesn't require much precision. Just aim kind of center of mass. If you're truly trying to min-max it, maybe like stomach area, crotch area, so it like splashes on all the different elements. If you don't know, explosive damage is essentially multi-hitting and hitting all the different components of the crusher at the exact same time, which makes it super good at just doing dumb amounts of damage. Like we're going to talk about the W.A.S.P later. 3 shots of crusher. Disgusting. So highly recommend the grenade launcher. Obviously it doesn't require a backpack, which is nice as well. So you can bring either a supply backpack or something like that. Else does really good against flesh mobs as well. That's also a huge plus for this weapon. So highly recommend bringing the grenade launcher if you're struggling with crushers. It makes it a lot easier. Kind of an interesting one is the Recoilless. It actually does pretty well against the crushers if you put on the HE ammo. Really weird that it does so well against the HE ammo with HE ammo, because like many of you would be like, wait, there's different ammunition for the recoils? Yeah, most of you just probably don't use it because it isn't very good. But because the crusher is very weak against, you know, high explosive ammo, it actually is a 2-shot kill. Fun to know, but I would not recommend. It's going to be slightly higher than D tier just because, I mean, technically it's better than the EAT, but I would not recommend. All right, next we have the flamethrower. The flamethrower is quite good, but it lacks the range potential of like the cremator, for instance. I do think it's like a solid B+, A- kind of weapon, but because of the limited range and it doesn't really have that like poke potential of like the cremator, it is a little bit harder to use. You are in that danger zone, as you would say, for the crusher. He can absolutely 2-step forward and smack you and it will be a surprise. You're gonna want to be paying attention to what he's doing and dodge backwards if he's moving anywhere farther forward, but it's still really effective. Fire is great versus the crushers and awesome against the wretches. So be careful, but it's a high risk, high reward weapon. But if you can make it work, it does fry. HMG, been loving using this thing on this faction, especially with the new armor, with the reload speed. It does fantastic against removing the helmet of the crusher while also being quite good against the wretches because of the, you know, high alpha damage. It's nice. It can be a bit hard to snipe the head after you remove the helmet of the crusher. So sometimes I was finding myself swapping to a primary weapon just to make sure I secure the kill, but it's so ruthlessly efficient at removing helmets that it's actually like very impressive. It's not as good as the laser cannon. I do think the laser cannon is overall a better weapon, but it kind of fits into a similar tier, but you don't have to reload the laser cannon. You don't have to worry about ammo on the laser cannon. Just don't overheat it. So it's kind of a worse off laser cannon, but still, honestly, deserves to be A tier. The old trusted autocannon. I love this thing, man. It's still S tier. It's still super good with flak rounds. With the reload speed armor, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, you got to give up your backpack slot, but I do think it's worth it for how much ammo you just get in that backpack. So I'm going to keep it there, probably lower on the S tier, but put this thing in flak mode, spam it at some crushers mid-tier area, and spam it at some wretches, and spam it at some flesh mobs. You're going to love it. Just make sure that you don't empty the magazine. It really does slow down the reload speed, and this is something that you guys are going to have to learn when using the autocannon. So if you're going to complain to me about, oh my god, the reload speed is so slow on the autocannon, that's because you're probably emptying the magazine. It's a really fast reload. It takes like just a second to throw in another 5 rounds. Even if you just play through it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, don't even fire any more than that, reload. Just count the 5 shots, reload. You don't need to expend all 10 to reload. You can just do it early. So give that a try. Next, we have the arc thrower. It's unfortunate. It really does suck against the crushers. It does stun them, and it can potentially remove their helmets, but I think we sat there for about, I think chat helped me count it, 26 shots to kill a crusher. Not good. At least it's good against the wretches, so I'm gonna put a little bit higher, but like I would much rather use like an MG43 even than the arc thrower. And then you have the team killing potential of like your Seif, you know, because this is very indiscriminate. It will bounce to your Seif and kill them, or just other players. I just feel like arc thrower is not a good spot for the Vote Snatcher variant of Illuminate. Can't recommend. Really can't. Next, we have the Quasar cannon. Nah, it ain't it. It takes way too long to come back. I'm gonna put a little higher than the ET because at least you don't have to like recharge it. It does a lot of alpha damage, but it's like you're gonna fire it and then you're gonna wait around for 10 seconds and then fire it again. Like, yeah, I guess I could see a potential world where like you're on a lower difficulty and you're firing it at a crusher's head and then you swap to another weapon. But it's like even then you can only kill one crusher every 10 seconds versus like other ones that are gonna be far more efficient. Also, you have to deal with the charge up time, which can be awkward with them rushing you down. Remember, I'm making this with the impression that you're probably gonna be playing on the higher tiers, maybe closer to tier 10. So yeah, I just can't recommend the Quasar as well. It's bottom, almost D tier, honestly. A fun one to use, maybe for yourself, but not others, is the Airburst. I might get a little bit of flack for kind of recommending this one, but it's pretty good. It does a lot of explosive damage. And if you get a bunch of crushers together, which does happen, especially on those repel missions, we can have like 10 next to each other at one given time, it can be good, but it's very easy to kill you and your team. It's so easy, in fact, to kill you and your team. I don't recommend it at the same time I'm recommending it. Be very careful when you use this thing. It is so easy for one wretch to jump at you, cause the early explosion, and to blow up in your face and kill all your teammates as well. Please don't do that to your team. If you're going to use this thing, try to go off by yourself and use this. Be very careful. It is an extremely high risk weapon for not that much payoff when you could just use a grenade launcher. You really could. So it's a hard one, but hey, there's going to be some chads out there that make it work, and good for you. All right, next we have the Commando. It's down there with the EAT. Just don't use it. I guess you could pop 4 heads of crushers off really fast with it, but that's all it's really good for. I do not recommend trying to use this thing going for legs or body and stuff like that. It's just, you can use an entire Commando and still not kill one. I believe if you hit all 4 shots on a crusher's leg, it will kill it, but like, no, it's a D tier. I do not recommend. If all of a sudden, let's say, some tripods show up when we go into the void, which could happen, who knows, if maybe the variant changes. Okay, maybe on this variant, I will, you know, appreciate the Commando, because the Commando is quite good at killing harvesters, for instance, the tripods. But in the current context of what we're dealing with, which is flesh mobs, wretches, crushers, and voteless, no. The Spear, nope. It can't even one-shot reliably crushers. It could potentially do it, but very often they just shrug it off. It hits an arm and they survive. It hits their head and they survive. I guess in the perfect scenario, it would somehow like not hit their upper torso in a bad spot. Maybe lower torso, takes off a leg, kills one, but that's unlikely to happen. I do not recommend. Railgun, decent at popping heads off the crushers, but you're not going to be really using it versus wretches. You know, I can't really recommend it all that much. Following up with another shot to take out the small head of the crusher, not really worth it. It's pretty overkill. You could just do that with a primary weapon. So it just feels a little awkward. It's nice to like have that that faster reload speed, and it's nice to be able to pop off the heads pretty fast, but other than that, it's kind of just, there are better options like the AMR and so on and so forth. So it's a bit of an awkward spot. Next, we have the W.A.S.P. I'm kind of struggling with this one. I do think it's really good because obviously it has auto aim. It only takes 3 shots, pretty fast reload with the armor. But if you've ever used the W.A.S.P. before, it can sometimes be awkward. It's got that spear problem where if the enemy's too close, it'll kind of launch itself and end up behind them. Or if the enemy is moving perpendicularly to you, it just misses. So in an optimal scenario that all the crushers are walking straight towards you and you can put 3 on each one, feels really good. Like really good, very easy to use. But I used it for a couple matches straight, and I'll be honest, the hit rate was probably around 80%. So 20% of your shots are just missing. So if you have trouble hitting your shots with, let's say, an AMR, laser cannon, autocannon, or something like that, W.A.S.P, good. But if you are someone that kind of has pretty good aim, if you feel pretty confident about hitting the head of a Crusher, I would probably recommend the other weapons. It does track onto Wretches, which is another reason why it's an A tier, and it does deal with flesh mobs quite well. So, I'm going to keep it A+. I do think it's a very solid option, and arguably it is better than the AMR because at least it can deal with flesh mobs a little bit better and Wretches better. So we'll keep it there. All right, next we have the hammer. Theoretically, if you bring stun grenades and you walk up, you can, I believe, double tap them if you get like the perfect angle, but it was very often a triple tap. You could kill one. I don't recommend it. I'm sure there's going to be many videos of people warp packing and doing it, but their hammer is kind of better than yours. In a melee off, it's pretty rough. Could you do it? Yes. Is it viable? Not really. Don't really recommend it. It's C tier. I'm going to give it just that because you could potentially get some value out of it and do some decent damage. All right, next we have the Epoch. The Epoch was feeling okay. It felt similar to the Railgun in many respects, but a little bit better just because it kind of doesn't require nearly as much accuracy. Get some big charge shots and you can 2-tap, potentially 3-tap depending on if you hit the arms. Try not to hit the arms. The arms will absorb a decent amount of the impact damage and not end up killing. But yeah, you could go for the head and get an easy 2-tap as well, or easier, I should say. First shot obviously rips off the helmet. Second shot eliminates them. More testing needs to be done because I think there could be some interesting breakpoints. I did not check if you could like do a half charge and maybe take off the helmet. There might be enough damage there. Might need to see it. But for now, to be safe, I'm going to put it like B+. It was pretty good, but maybe there's some Epoch tech there. I'm going to keep having to test it. Next, we have the Metal Storm. Fun weapon as always to use, but it's going to be largely C tier. Great versus the Wretches, pretty good versus flesh mobs. Can't really recommend versus Crushers. You're going to be using a good portion of the ammunition in it in order to kill one. Can it do it? Yeah. Is it inefficient? Not particularly. But hey, at least it kills the Wretches. So it's like C+, B-, similar to the MG43, but it's expendable, so you got to be pretty good at doing that code. At least you get 2 of them though. Next, we have the Speargun. I'm going to be putting this one higher than the Railgun purely because it has some CC potential. 1 spear takes off the helmet, which is fantastic. Love that. And the gas component does confuse them, which is cool, but the gas is a double-edged sword when you're trying to take out the head afterwards because they're going to probably be swinging away as most enemies that are confused. They're just going to be like, moving around. So it can make it kind of harder to hit the head, but because it's so good at CCing them, if you just want to like be debuffing a bunch of enemies, it's pretty good for that. And it has the potential of confusing a lot of Wretch, especially on the city maps. You got a lot of narrow hallways and stuff like that. You can use that to your advantage to shoot the ground, keep moving backwards. Decent. Another one that I'm probably not going to recommend is the Defouler, aka the Chainsword. High risk, high reward, but I think I would rather use the hammer just because at least you can smack them, pull back. With the Chainsword, you definitely have to commit a lot more into the Chainsword, right? Every single swing. You're going to want to bring stun grenades to close the gap, and you're going to want to have balls of steel. Good luck. We have the Sterilizer. I think the Sterilizer is pretty good. You're not really killing your Crushers, but at least it has a lot of CC potential for Wretches, Crushers, flesh mobs, so on and so forth. So it's ultimately a don't touch me stratagem and just keep doing the objective. So if some of you have been doing the take down the mothership mission and been noticing there's so many enemies, this could be an option of, hey, I don't have enough time to kill everything. Maybe I just confuse everything, then, do the objective. It's a possible strategy. Give it a try. Next, we have the Napalm launcher, the expendable Napalm launcher. Decent, great for Wretches, good for flesh mobs, not particularly great for Crushers, even if you hit them. I think you might be able to get a 1-tap, maybe if you can do something like the Dragon Roach, where like it smacks into it, and then all the clusters open up below the arms or in the arms, and maybe all the explosions happen right there. I could see the potential of that, but I couldn't get it to do it reliably. I think I had it once. I don't really recommend it, but at least it's really good at spreading fire and dealing with Wretches and dealing with multiple Crushers at the same time, potentially by lighting multiple on fire. So I'm going to put it B-. Decent, but not recommended. Leveler, as always, super awesome at just dealing with a lot of enemies at the same time. And if you've been playing the new faction, that does happen. There are a lot of enemies at the same time because there's no drops. They're all coming in individual patrols, but they can accumulate pretty fast. So it can get insane very quickly. Leveler is a great just tool of just fire, forget, move on, right? And it does eliminate them and do a stupid amount of damage. So decent. The only problem is you're only going to be able to use one every 2 minutes or so. So bit of a hard sell, but at least if you have grouped up a lot of enemies, you could potentially use that. Next, we have our Arc GL. I like this thing. I do. And I wish it was better, but it really isn't. It's only good against the Wretches for the most part and the Voteless. It's not amazing versus flesh mobs. It can get the work done if you spam enough shots, especially with new armor. But versus crushers, it is just not good. You're looking at probably 12 plus rounds to kill a crusher, and eliminating the helmet seemed to be harder than I thought. Even if you aim straight at it, I wasn't always getting it to rip off, which was a bit surprising because it is arc damage and it does have enough pen. But yeah, can't really recommend. It was kind of mid to honestly lower than mid. It wasn't very particularly good. Wouldn't recommend. But at least it had ad clear potential, which is why it's on the higher tier of C. Next, we go to the belt-fed grenade launcher. Honestly, A plus. Feels good. You have to give up your backpack, and it doesn't have a ton of ammo, but at least it's a city map, so there's lots of ammo around. Does relatively well against wretches. It doesn't one-tap them, but it does so well against voteless, and does so well against flesh mobs, and does so well against crushers, especially if you boost up the fire rate. You can take out a lot of crushers very fast. With the GL, although it's more ammo efficient, and you don't have to bring a backpack, it's really fast. Like, the belt-fed is really fast in comparison, because you can, like, eliminate so many without having to reload, obviously. So I do like it. Not as good as the normal GL, but it's nice. I would recommend giving it a try. It's pretty fun to use, and it doesn't require nearly as much accuracy as other A tier weapons. So give it a try. It's fun. Next, we have C4. I think C4 is like honorable A tier. It does one-shot crushers, and if you get a bunch of crushers very close together, it can eliminate more than one at a time. It's not exactly ammo efficient with it, though, because you don't have many in reserve, but really good for objectives, good versus flesh mobs, good for a pack of enemies. It's decent, especially if you get good at doing the quick swap in the wheel quickly. If you've never seen it before, if you go to your options, I'm on mouse and keyboard, obviously, but combat, scroll all the way down. And then what you're looking for is quick weapon wheel left. I have it bound to B, but it's whatever. Basically, it stops you from needing to go to the weapon wheel, like hold the reload button, then swap. You basically just press that button and it goes from detonator to throw, or throw to detonator. So you can throw it, and as it's traveling through the air, swap, detonate. Makes it a lot faster. Highly recommend. All right, next we have the solo silo. Can't really recommend it. It's kind of like the leveler, but a little bit more awkward to use. But, you know, it's somewhere probably B minus, because it kind of operates the same way as a leveler. You just need to have more like space to do it sometimes, because you're gonna have to throw it down, run over to it, aim it, probably get knocked over by it, because as the missile launches, so be careful of the ragdoll, it might get you killed. And then hopefully the enemy hasn't moved by the time it hits it. It's a lot to work out. On defensive missions, it's easier because obviously you can laser guide it, stay away from it. But yeah, it's a little bit awkward to use, but I will show some value to it because it is big boom and it can eliminate many crushers and many wretches at the same time. So decent. Next is the Cremator. I'm going to put the Cremator like A plus S tier. The only reason I'm debating on S tier, maybe just putting it A plus, is obviously because it's a flamethrower. You have to be careful with range. Range is a concern on this one. You have to be careful not to get it too close, or like not to get too close to the crusher and then he just smacks you in the face. Similar to the flamethrower. It is easier to use in the flamethrower because it does more upfront damage, especially at range, but it can be awkward because you also don't have a backpack, so you don't have a guard dog covering you. You know, you won't have as many stims, you won't have like any movement potential in a backpack, so it's a little bit hard to use. So it's dancing between S tier and A tier. I'm going to assume you guys are very good with the Cremator and knowing your spacing, but if you feel like you aren't that good with it, probably stick it in A plus. Next, we have the Maxigun. Maxigun, you still can't move while firing it, so it does leave you quite vulnerable. It is technically like a better variant of the MG43 sometimes, obviously not needing to reload, and you know, if you crouch and have like the recoil resistant armor and stuff like that, you know, it has like not that much recoil and you can kind of snipe with it, but it's still pretty damn awkward to use, and I wouldn't really recommend using it versus the crushers. It's a bullet hose problem where it's your last resort to take out a crusher. There are better ways to take out crushers, and bullet hoses are not particularly them. So I'm going to put it somewhere next to the MG43. It's more or less interchangeable. There's pros and cons to it, but not something I'd necessarily recommend versus it. The flag should probably be an F tier for flag. You know, be easy on me, but you're not killing a crusher with it reliably. You can do it. I'm sure there's going to be someone that proves me wrong and does it reliably, but it's not something I recommend. It's not particularly good. All right, next, going into the backpacks. Is there anything need to be said about the Supply backpack? It's S tier as always. Yes, we are on the city planets right now, but eventually I'm sure we're going to be on the void planets inside the warp, and I don't think we're going to have as many resources when we're inside. So I highly recommend pairing the Supply backpack with things like the grenade launcher, AMR, HMG, things like that. It's just super good for you and your team to stay resupplied. It's just so good. So freaking Good. All right. Next, we have movement potential items. I tend to put these just in B tier and then quickly give you a quick little like, hey, you might be really good with the backpack and make a lot of usage of it. It might be S tier for you. But hey, you might also be really bad with the backpack and it might be D tier for you. So I'm going to put it middle of the road. It's hard for me because it's totally player skill dependent on if you can find good opportunities to use it. You might be good at it. You might be bad at it. So yeah, I'm going to put all the movement potential items here. If you can find really good ways to use it, hell yeah. But if you're not very good with it, don't use it. All right. So keep that in mind. Next, we have the ballistic shield. You can potentially tank some hits with it. It is a possibility. I wouldn't recommend that gameplay. It is nice that you can pair it with like, let's say the crossbow or something like that. But you know, it is pretty meme worthy. But if you want to sword and board it, hey, go right ahead. Show me what you're worth. But yeah, I don't really recommend it. This thing will break, so you got to be careful with it. Don't let it break on you at a bad time. It can potentially prevent some damage from wretches, which is why I'm going to put it like maybe C+ tier. You know, when it's on your back Ninja Turtle style, wretches that are jumping on top of you are most likely going to hit the shield, preventing damage to you, which is pretty decent, right? But I don't like using it actively because I have to use a solo weapon, and there's no primary or support weapons that pair well with it yet. So you're basically just limited to the SMGs and pistols and crossbow. At least crossbow is quite good though. So, all right, now for the guard dogs. Guard dogs are a bit difficult. I'm going to try and place them the best I can, but just do bear in mind that it's mostly down to this sub faction and not really needing armor pen that just puts the laser guard dog all the way up here. It's super good. It's good against all enemies, including crushers, because it will light them on fire. This thing will always be firing, which is something that can't be said about the other guard dogs. The other guard dogs often need to go back onto your back and reload and need to be resupplied. So there's going to be moments you're going to run out of ammo and this thing is still going to be firing. So laser guard dog, super good. Lighting enemies on fire. Very good for the wretches. Very good for crushers. Very good for flesh mobs. Just solid. So good. Next, we have the AR variant. Honestly, still very good, but it needs to reload and it needs ammo. That's all there really needs to be said. It does good damage. It's not as good against the crusher, but it's still up there because it is very good against all the other enemies on the faction, even including flesh mobs. It does actually do a good amount of damage to them as well, but it needs to reload, which does kind of suck. Next, we have the shield backpack. Solid, you know, good for defending you against wretches attack, especially if you are the host. They do leap onto you much more reliably if you don't dodge in time and do a lot of damage. We call it the stim tax, but this does prevent you from needing to, pay your stim tax as often. It can potentially save you from a crusher attack if it doesn't quite like intersect with you fully. I had a situation where it did save me, but there will be situations where it still kills you. So be aware. Yeah, good against wretches and good against resisting damage from flesh mobs. So yeah, decent. Directional shield. It ain't it, chief. There's no projectiles, and it's mostly like a projectile, like preventing item. It's not like the ballistic shield that will actually prevent damage from melee hits, similar to the shield as well. All right, next we have the flame guard dog. Honestly, really strong. I'm going to put it a little bit higher than the ballistic guard dog just because it has the ability to have some CC. When the beam of fire is on an enemy, it will confuse them. It has higher pen, which will do better against the crushers, which it could actually remove the helmet, which I actually had happen. Good against the wretches, good against flesh mobs, good against the voteless. So highly recommend, but it does have the downside of needing to reload and need ammo. Hellbomb backpack, as always, solid A tier. Highly recommend. It can be a bit difficult to use at times, but if you can find the right opportunity in Illuminate outpost or large amount of enemies walking towards you or during the repel missions, obviously it's a Hellbomb on your back. It's really strong, but it's definitely player dependent. You will either find great success with it or it will kill you and your team by accident. So be careful. Next, we have the Arc Guard dog. Honestly, quite strong against everything but the crushers, but you need to be by yourself. And what I mean by yourself, maybe your 3 teammates on one side of the map, you on the other. If you do cross paths, press your 5 key. I think it's down on the D-pad to stow it on your back so it's not killing your teammates. Because trust me, this thing will kill your teammates. Don't trust it to not kill your teammates. It will kill your teammates a lot. Please do not kill your teammates with this. All right. So I'm going to put it like somewhere B-, but I'm going to use it and put it there, assuming that you listen to my feedback of put it away when you're near teammates. Please Gas Guard Dog, honestly, also A tier, very good at just preventing damage to yourself. I have noticed more lately that the AI on the Guard Dog, it kind of affects you with gas a lot more than he used to. I guess this might be like some crossover changes with the Sterilizer or something like that, but I just noticed it gassing me more often than I did in the past. Maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm just crazy and I never noticed it before, but I've been finding myself being gassed by more often by it, which does kind of suck. So be careful with that, but it's still really good at like denying crushers, denying flesh mobs, denying wretches. You know, it's solid. It's really good. So it's still very good at that. Next, we have the FRV, still maintains being extremely good, but it depends on the user. You know, you could be a very good driver and get around the map very effectively and get away from crushers, but you also could be a really shit driver and drive right into a hammer. So this one is up to you as the driver. It's not like the Supply FRV, which I'm just going to put higher because at least the Supply FRV has a bunch of supplies in the back. The normal FRV just doesn't have that, and it's got an HMG, which HMG isn't bad, but I would rather have supplies than I would rather have the regular FRV. You know, even if you're a bad pilot, or sorry, not pilot, driver, the Supply FRV is just better. Next, we have the Incinerator FRV. We haven't really been able to use this one. It's on the tier list, so I'm just going to place it in case, you know, magically they give it to us. They have said that we're supposed to get it, I think like October or something. I don't know. We're supposed to get it later at some point, but assuming we eventually get it, it's kind of a liability to you because if it blows up, it's a big boom, which could also play out in your favor. But the Cremator on the back would be pretty nice for like kiting enemies, like you guys just driving away and then a slow band of crushers just flaming behind you. Decent. I'm gonna put it there, but it is slower, so it'll be harder to avoid damage at times unless you're really planning out your routes. Bastion, really good, but it's always down to driver versus gunner. If you two have a cohesive team, it's fantastic. It's so good, especially versus the rappel missions. Highly recommend. But if you're not very good at like playing as a team and you're just trying to solo dive with it, nah, it ain't it, chief. It ain't it. It's bad. It's really bad. But if you have good teamwork, you know, like, I don't know. It's tough for me to place. I'm going to put a B tier because I'm like, I don't know. But it's like, it could be potentially S tier if you're good at like managing it with a teammate, but it could be D tier if you just like get in it and you're solo and a crusher walks up to you and smacks it over and over again. So keep that in mind. Next, we have the Emancipator mech. This thing is S tier easily. It's insane, especially with how tanky it is. It can survive a melee hit or two. You know, try not to get hit, but the guns on it are very good at stripping the helmet off. It's very good versus the rappel mission. Very good for just clearing out outposts. It's pretty damn fast. Good against wretches. Good against flesh mobs. It's just really good. Just be careful of Leviathans flying around. They will target you very often. So, you know, keep that in mind. Next, we have the Patriot exosuit. Fun. Very cinematic, but it isn't as strong as the Emancipator mech, mostly because the machine gun is medium pen. So the only way to take off a crusher's helmet is to rocket it or to dump a lot of minigun into each crusher, and it's not very efficient. But I'll give it a pretty high rating just because it is a mech at the end of the day, and it does have rockets, which are pretty good against the helmets, and it has a lot of minigun ammo for dealing with wretches. So maybe you're not particularly good at dealing with crushers, but at least you can deal with everything else pretty effectively. So we'll put it there. Next, we have the Breakthrough mech. I'm gonna put this one a little bit lower, but it is really fun to use. Going up to a crusher and just like shotgunning them in the face, pretty satisfying. But you got to get a lot closer. Your shield is there to prevent some damage, but it can be hard to use especially if you're not always getting that spacing right, because you will eventually either lose your shield or some of the hits might hit like your other arm or hit your leg or something like that. So I've seen mixed results with the Breakthrough mech. It can be potentially good, and you can melee down a crusher. It takes like maybe like 5 or 6 swings or so, but it's like high risk, high reward, right? It's like most melee things. The shotgun can be definitely pretty good against them, but it's no Emancipator mech, and it's probably largely kind of similar to the other mech, but the other mech is kind of safer to use, and it has more minigun, which is better against the rest of the Illuminates that you're going to be running into. Next, we have the Lumber. I think the Lumber is kind of in the same boat as the Patriot exosuit, mostly because the anti-tank weapon on it is good and you get more ammo than the Patriot exosuit, but the minigun is kind of overall better than the Flamer, because the Flamethrower on the Lumber is not the same Flamethrower as the Cremator or a normal Flamethrower. It's the same as the turret, which is more of like a long-range Flamethrower for setting enemies on fire. The direct damage does not seem to be the same at all. You'll realize that pretty quickly when you're Flamethrowering a crusher. They don't die as fast fast as when you use the cremator. So it's still really good for just lighting the ground ablaze as they walk towards you, and then using the anti-tank weapon versus, let's say, the Leviathans in the sky, or UFOs on the ground, or just, you know, popping the heads of crushers. So decent. All right. And last, but finally not least, we have the Melta weapon. The Melta gun is really, really fun. I absolutely love this thing. I think it is super fun to use. It is just like the flamethrower, but not a flamethrower. It is shorter range, which does make it hard to use, but at the same time, it does so much raw damage. And as long as you charge it up, like as you get into the optimal range, you do stagger them almost immediately because you remove the helmet so fast. And if you have particularly good aim, as they're staggering backwards from getting melted, you can actually hit their head and kill them in one shot. Pretty hard to do, but it does work. On average, it's like 2 shots, like 1 shot to remove the helmet, 1 shot to hit the head. And if you're going for like a leg, it's like 2 really good bursts, 3 if you're missing some of the bursts. It's really fun to use, but it's high risk, high reward. Pretty damn good versus flesh mobs. 2 shots on average, depending on how many eyes you pop. You're never gonna one-shot a flesh mob with this thing, but I think if you're pretty good at like tracing all of the heads on a flesh mob, you can get it in 2. Don't use it versus the wretches. It's not worth it, but I do like it. It's still like a really fun weapon to use, but it's like high risk, high reward. I don't want to put it in B tier because I think it's higher than that, but it is a little bit awkward to use because of that distance and the fact that you're not really going to be using it versus the wretches and other things as much. But man, did I love using this when it first came out. It is super, super, super fun. I do think it is higher tier on the other factions, so do not fret. You know, this thing is easily like A plus S tier on like literally every single faction, but it does struggle a bit versus crushers just because you got to get the optimal range and it can be a bit awkward versus the rest of the enemies. Hopefully you bring something else aside from the melt to deal with wretches and so on and so forth. But I really like this thing. Highly recommend. At least for the fun factor. It is really, really fun. So let's go through the tier list real quick and just see if we want to move anything. I think I am going to move up, let's say, like the bullet hose stratagems just a little bit higher. I do think I was a little harsh at the beginning of the video on them. I don't really recommend the bullet hoses. I think they are not particularly great, but you know, after like looking at the other stratagems that it's up against, you know, I am going to recommend them over some of these for sure. Like it does deserve to be at least like mid tier B to B minus, but trust me, you are better off bringing other things that are good against the wretches, flesh mobs, and crushers all at the same time, rather than just being good against the wretches and flesh mob. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind. But maybe if you have a particularly like good weapon that you love using versus the crushers, hey, fair enough. All power to you. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this first tier list back with the Illuminate enemies. I'm hoping to see a little more variety in the constellation when we go to the warp planets inside, because so far I find the enemy variety be a bit low, and it doesn't exactly make for the most interesting tier list because I'm mostly just waging on, does it kill a crusher? Yes or no? Is it good against the wretches? Yes or no? And that's about it. I'm hoping that some other enemies come into the mix that, you know, make for a more interesting tier list, because I feel like there's a bunch of, you know, weapons near the bottom of the tier list that just don't get a lot of usage because there's no harvester, there's no, you know, mechs, there's no like so on and so forth, right? You know what I mean? Like there needs to be something else that hopefully makes it a little more interesting. But anyways, first tier list. Next, we're going to be working on a loadout video because I know a lot of people have been asking me, hey, what loadouts are you bringing for the new Illuminate missions? I'm really curious. So we're going to pump that out for you as well today. Hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the live streams linked down below. I am live every morning, really early NA, but it's like 9 a.m. Central European time for those in Europe. And yeah, come on by. Love to see you. Peace out, YouTube. Have a good one. Bye.